Hey, what's going on, kids? Jeff Preventure here, High Gear Automotive in Rochester, New Hampshire. Got a customer's Chrysler Town Country here. Has a misfire, flashing engine light. He threw an ignition coil and some plug wires on there, trying to chase it down, throw some parts at it, see what happens. Didn't fix it, so brought it in, and we're going to take a look at it and see what we can do with it, and hopefully fix it up for him. So let's see what we got going on here. Alright, so we got our scan tool hooked up here, and so let's check the codes and see what we got going on in here. Obviously, the first thing you want to do before you throw any parts at it, take any guesses, you got an engine light, just check the codes. It's kind of a no-brainer, you know. Obviously, let's do that first. So let's see what we got here. 2003 Chrysler Town and Country van, 3.8 liter engine. That's what we got. Loading. Codes. Codes only. Alright, so we checked the codes in our van here, and it had a few different codes, but the couple that we're most interested in right now are going to be a P0204, which is a cylinder 4 injector circuit issue, and also a P0300, which is a misfire code. So first thing I'm going to do is we're going to go looking at that injector and get an idea what's going on there, see if it's even working. So let's get to that, see what we get. Alright, so here we are under the hood of our van here. You can see we got some new plug wires here, actually only 3. Our cylinder 4 is this guy right here in the middle on this van here. It goes 2, 4, and 6. So we got new wires on here. There's our new ignition coil that they put in. Looks like I don't know if there's some bolts missing there or not, but so there's our cylinder 4 or cylinder 4 injector. Is gonna be this guy right here underneath the plenum. So what we're gonna have to do here is first thing I'm gonna do is take my stethoscope or screwdriver and listen to see if I can hear it firing while we're misfiring, and then that'll bring us to our next step, or determine what our next step is going to be. So let's try that out, see what happens. Alright, so we got our scan tool hooked up to it. As you can see very clearly, cylinder 4 misfire counts are ramping right up. So there's no doubt the computer sees number 4 misfiring. So we have a cylinder 4 injector circuit issue. We have a cylinder 4 misfire. So like I said, our next step here, I'm going to take our screwdriver, see if we can hear the injector clicking off. I'm assuming we're not going to be able to hear it, but let's find out. Fortunately, my stethoscope broke. I was dumb and broke it, so we're going to use a screwdriver. Six, I can hear very clearly. 4, I can't hear at all. 2, I can hear very clearly. So, pretty much what that means is we're going to put a noid light on the injector, or the wire connector for the injector. Put a noid light on there and see if we're getting our power and pulse. If we're getting power and pulse, that pretty much verifies that injector's junk. If we're not getting power and pulse, then we're going to have to track that down and figure out what the cause of that is. So our next step is going to try to get that connector off. Alright, so there's our number 4 injector. You can see the little red, I don't know what we'll call that, little safety retaining tab there. Chrysler likes to use on their connectors. So we got to take that little tab and push it up, and then we're going to release the injector. Right there, that's our little red safety tab. We're going to push that straight up like that, and then you're supposed to push the top of this in, and that will lift the little clasp at the bottom here, and you'll be able to pull the injector up and off the vehicle. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try and put like a pick up underneath there and release it that way, because sometimes these tend to snap. When you go to push it over, sometimes they break, especially older brittle plastic. I think you know, this car is approximately, I think, 17, 18 years old, something like that. It's an 03. It's about, yeah. So we're actually probably more like 19 years old. So I'm gonna try to pop this connector off, and if I can successfully do it, I'll put my noid light on it and see if it's working. So that way, the reason I'm doing it this way is if this has a computer issue or a wiring issue, there's a chance I won't have to take this plenum off. I got to change the injector. I'll probably take the plenum off. That's only if it's the injector itself. If it's not the injector, I may not have to take the plenum off. So I'm going to try to do this with it intact if I can. We'll see how that works out. Let's see if I can get in there and do this eventually. That pushed up extremely easy. Now that injector is very clean too. I kind of wonder if it's already been replaced. It's interesting. Let's keep going here and see if we can pop this off here. There we go. So it's kind of like a single shot there. If you can get that underneath that little clasp at the bottom of the connector by pushing up into it to release it, and at the same time you're pushing up on there so it'll come off the injector. So I'll just take it and grab a pair of needle nose, and I'll see if I can pull it towards me enough to get my noid light on it. Alright, so there's our connector. Just grab my pliers here and see if I can pull it through. Just grab it, get behind it with my fingers and kind of hold it there, like so. And what we're going to do is take our noid light test kit here, right there. Noid light. I think this is a Advanced Auto Parts kit, Autocraft. I think that's where that came from. So what we're going to do is grab our extremely common Bosch style noid light. So that's our noid light right there, Bosch number 2. That's what it looks like, and there's like a little, I don't know if that's a LED or, I imagine it's an LED, but I don't know, bulb in here, and that thing's gonna flash hopefully when we hook this up and run the car, start it up, and hopefully it's gonna flash. When it's flashing, that tells us two things. It'll tell us, one, we have power going to the injector, and we also have a ground pulse coming from the computer, and that will pretty much solidify the fact that the injector is bad. Like I said, if we don't get that flash, then we're going to look elsewhere. Alright, so I'll take this, plug this in. Doesn't really matter which way you go. We'll take it, and if we can get this guy plugged in, and let's see what happens. I'll move the light here, and I'll actually cut the light off on the camera here so you can see it flash better if it flashes. Maybe. There we go. Alright, well look at that. She is not doing anything. So I think somebody may have put an injector in here before, looking after this problem, like I had said. There was that thing looks a lot cleaner than the other two on each side of it. So we're gonna have to check and see what's happening here, if we're missing power or ground or what. Alright, so we got our 12 volt test light set up here. Regular old school test light with a halogen bulb. I like this better for doing this because it's actually going to put a load, or it carries a little bit of a load, and that'll tell me if it's working properly. LED test lights, the nature of the LED, doesn't take much power to light that sucker up, so you could have really low voltage. You could have, say, 4 or 5 volts coming through that thing, and it might light that LED up, but it's not really going to light this halogen bulb up very well. It'll light it up the same as 4 volts or 12 volts. You can really get an idea of what's coming through that circuit when you put a little bit of a load on it with this halogen style bulb, I think it's called. So got a test light hooked up, grounded. Anytime you use your test light, the very first thing you want to do is check it and make sure that it's properly working. The last thing you want to do is just hook up your ground and then start checking circuits, chasing your tail around thinking you have problems, when the whole time you had either a bad test light or a bad connection at your battery or something like that. That can really ruin your day. And you start going down a rabbit hole looking for problems that don't exist. Alright, so we got our Town & Country here running extremely rough right now because I have 2 injectors unplugged. I have the our faulty cylinder injector unplugged, and I have one of the good ones unplugged just for comparison. So what I'm going to do is for my test light on the bad one and the good one, test for power at the injectors. So this is our good one right here. There's our problem one down there, and we'll see what we get. So we got our test light here hooked up to ground, and I'm going to grab a good injector and check for power on it. So there we go, we got power on one side, should have nothing on the other, right? This is our driver's side. So this is where the computer actually grounds the injector to fire it off. So we got power on one side and nothing on one side. We're going to grab our problem injector. If I can sneak in there and pull it out with my fingers. There we go. To check it. Power on our power side and power on the driver's side. Injected driver's side. So we have power on both sides, our signal side and our powered up side. So now what we need to do is determine if there's some type of a short right now to a short on that signal wire, sending power on that signal wire. That's why our injector is not firing. We're not grounding it. We're actually getting power on both sides. So now we can figure out where that power is coming from. If it's in the computer or if it's in the wiring harness, say, or somewhere. So that's going to be our next step. Alright, so we got our setup here for our next test. This test here is going to pretty much be the end-all of tests to determine if we have an actual component, an individual component failure, or if we have a wiring problem. So right now what we have is power across two circuits on the injector, the actual power side and the driver's side. Driver's side of the circuit shouldn't have any power on it. We do have power on it. So there's power being jumped over there somehow or another. So right now, the two options here really are if we have a computer problem, the driver is actually shorted power, or we have a wiring problem. So that being known, what we're going to do is unplug the injector driver circuit from the computer. That's the connector number 1 and pin number 16 on our connector. So we got our DVOM set up with our MacGyver clip into the pin, and our very useful diagram here tells us injector number 4 driver, pin 16, brown. I believe that's brown and tan. I don't really care about the color. Color doesn't mean anything to me. But it's pin 16, connector number 1, gray, black insert, injector 4 driver. So that's we have our DVOM set up. Like I said, handy dandy MacGyver clip in there on pin 16 in connector number 1 at the PCM. DVOM, I don't know if it just tried to shut itself off. I think the battery's dying. Ironically, my favorite DVOM to use is a free Harbor Freight special, or a $3 Harbor Freight special. I can't remember what the hell it cost, but this is actually my favorite one to use. Got it set on ohms because we're checking continuity. We're going to check continuity between the two circuits at the fuel injector. Those two circuits are completely isolated right now. They have no connection to one another with the plug unhooked from the PCM. There's no way in the world they should be connected right now. The only way they're going to be connected or have continuity between those two circuits is if they're fused together somehow at some point where they shouldn't be. Some type of they're shorted together. So we're going to test that and see what we get here. Alright, so do my best here to kind of set this up so you can see it. Like I said, I have my other wire on my DVOM in the inside the connector, pin 16, which is injector driver circuit at the connector for the PCM. And I'm going to reach in here and grab my injector connector and see if you can see what I'm doing here. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but when I check this, you're going to see continuity on one on my injector driver circuit. You should see continuity. You shouldn't see it on the other one because, like I said, they should be completely isolated from one another right now. If we see continuity, that tells us that we have a short between these two wires. If we don't see continuity, that tells us that our short is probably in the PCM. Pretty much for a fact it's in the PCM. Alright, so I got a setup here that I think will work. That fluctuation there is actually just me touching it with my fingers. That means nothing. Don't worry about that. So like I said, I don't know which pin is which. It doesn't matter to me. Like I said, I don't really care which is which. So I have continuity on that one. So that could be my driver. It's very possible. Now, since I had continuity on that one, unless these wires are shorted together in the harness, I should not have any continuity on this other one. I'm going to check it. Look at that, I do. There's 0.5 ohms of resistance on that one. And there is about 0.6, 0.5 on that one. So that tells me that those two circuits are connected somewhere together. That's not good. Well, it's good and bad. It's not the way it's supposed to be, but it's good now. We pretty much isolated this now as a harness problem. So that tells us this is somehow shorted together. These two wires are shorted together somewhere between the connector on the computer and right here. So somewhere between this connector here and this connector here at the fuel injector, those two wires are shorted. So now we need to start isolating the harness and figure out where they're shorted. So that's a whole nother ball game. So let's get to that. All right. So now that we've determined our short here, our circuit short is in the harness, not in the computer. We're going to start isolating the harness. Simplest way to do that is to find connectors in line of that circuit in the harness. So the first one that I'm going to jump to here is going to be the fuel injector harness. Connector 102 right there, located at the back of the motor. That's the you can see the ignition coils right there. There's our coils. There's our connector 102 injector side of the harness. Now we're gonna got a diagram here of connector 102. So connector 102 is black connector, 3.3 liter, 3.8 liter Chrysler. There is our pinout description, and I believe let me check here. Hold on a second. I don't remember which specific circuit I'm looking at, so I'm just going to verify that. All right. So just verifying here, fuel injector number 4 driver is circuit. It's going to be K14, 16, brown, tan. Like I said, colors, I don't know, I'm not really too concerned about colors. I've seen colors actually vary from the diagrams here and the service information. So I'm not going to be too concerned about the colors. But it's K14. We'll look over in our pinout here. K14 for our connector on the fuel rail side. This is the injector harness side, not the vehicle harness heading to the computer. K14, it's cavity number 6. So cavity number 6 here, you see on the connector, is the one in the corner, bottom corner there. So that's where we're going next. Alright, so in the middle of testing this harness out on the injector side of the harness, like I said, where I was going, I started getting some weird results, or results that were unexpected for what I had done. Different readings on the meter from what I was getting, things that didn't make any sense. When you're dealing with wiring issues and you find things that don't make sense when you start unplugging and unplugging connectors and things in the harness and wiggling things around and things change. You probably just inadvertently found your problem. And that's pretty much what happened here. I unplugged that connector to locate the issue that we were having. I wanted to test the injector side of the harness. I unplugged the connector. I was going to hook my meter up and test it, and I did that, and the readings just didn't make any sense. They didn't match what I should be seeing. Either my previous readings on the meter that I showed when we tested at the computer, or the readings I would see if there was no problem in that part of the harness. They were different. It didn't make any sense. They shouldn't be different. To either be the same or completely correct, and it wasn't. It was different. So pretty much what that means is I inadvertently found the problem. So let's see what we got here. Alright, so we're back under the hood. We're looking at the connector for the fuel injector side of the harness, and what we'll see here is a whole bunch of bare wires, a whole bunch of them. You see that? That is just completely deteriorated. Probably an oil leak down there. You can see there's a lot of oil, very oily and grimy. It was bent on a funky angle. There's a lot of heat down there between the cylinder head. The exhaust is right there. It just destroyed the insulation on that wiring. And you can see all those all that bare wire right there. Those wires touching. I can pretty confidently say that we located our problem here. And I'll tell you what, we haven't spent a dime in parts yet. We haven't replaced one good part on this vehicle. I've probably got a little bit more time because I'm trying to video it, but I don't really have that much time wrapped up in this thing to locate this problem. I haven't replaced one part yet. The only item that I could probably call a consumable is the paper clip, my MacGyver clip. You know, that's it. So this thing had a brand new ignition coil tossed into it, had some spark plug wires put on it. I think those are new spark plugs too. I can't tell, they look dirty, but I think that's because there's all oil down there, but maybe not, I'm not positive. But at least the coil, wires, that fuel injector in there is considerably cleaner and not grimy like the other two on the front here. So I think somebody actually put a fuel injector in it. When you put a fuel injector in this thing, you gotta take the plenum off. I don't think they replaced intake gaskets or upper plenum gaskets when they did that, so that may have actually caused a whole nother problem. So now you have a separated plenum, put in a fuel injector, put it back together with old gaskets. So I don't know how good those gaskets are even sealing right now. But like I said, I haven't wasted any money on replacing good parts. And if you were going to start throwing parts at this thing after an injector, coil, wires, plugs, the next place you're throwing parts is probably a computer. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of dollars, you know, in waste. So this is why you don't be a parts replacer, okay? You very simply bring this car into a shop like myself or another qualified technician that knows what they're doing, and they can have this thing diagnosed within a matter of some few hours or so, 2-3 hours, who knows, without wasting money on replacing parts you don't need to replace, and it's fixed right. Who knows how long this has been going on with this car, and we're gonna have it fixed up within a day or so here. Gonna get a harness, gonna pull the plenum back off, gonna put new intake gaskets on there when we take that apart. We're not gonna reuse the old gaskets, so we're gonna put gaskets on it, we're gonna put a harness in it, we're gonna put it back together, and I am extremely confident that we can call this fixed without wasting any money. Not a dime. Didn't waste a dime. So yeah, I think we'll be good. So that's going to be our next step. So we get the harness, and put some gaskets and get it swapped out, and then we'll check on the results after we're done.